I'd like to call the Macomb City Council Committee of the whole to order, please. If the clerk would call the roll.
Mike Wayland.
Here.
John Vajezi.
Here.
Annette Carper.
Here.
Tom Cook.
Present.
Gail Carper.
Here.
Tammy Lee Brown Edwards.
Here.
Dennis Moon.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Under the public comment section of tonight's agenda, citizens wishing to address the City Council will be limited to 3 minutes and are asked to be brief and concise in making their remarks. We do have some written comments tonight. Madam Clerk.
This is from Nicole S. I would like for my last name to be withheld due to my career and fear of retaliation, so please refer to me as Nicole. I'm very disappointed in Detective McLaughlin's comments. I thought highly of him and have even had people from out of town get their concealed carry license from him. I'm upset. I recommended him and will never do so again. I read his post and every comment to try to understand where he was coming from. The post seemed to leave out a lot of details. Also, even off duty, why is this allowed to be posted at all when you work in law enforcement? It's on a public business page. Working in healthcare, it would be viewed poorly since a member of the community you serve is being called out. So why is it acceptable to discuss altercations on social media in law enforcement? I don't know whether this occurred, and I'm not condoning said behavior, but when you are seen highly in a community, then you should think before posting online. This caused more hate in the community, and people were quick to say they would handle said problem. The majority are known keyboard warriors, but since he chose to post this, he should now hold responsibility to tell those people it's not okay to handle, and doing so will lead to consequences. Another concern was saying he can't be intimidated. The statement has completely a different tone when being posted on firearms business page than when posted on a private page. This shouldn't have been posted anywhere, but the choice to post from a firearms page made it worse. The attempt later saying he meant no harm seemed forced. He didn't apologize. He said he's sorry people took it wrong. He also said he was vague because he doesn't promote violence, but if you don't promote violence, why post this from a firearms training page? If I posted anything similar, even on personal social media, I would be fired. My career doesn't even focus on protecting the community. This type of behavior is why I didn't follow through with law enforcement as a career. This is why so many members of our community can't go anywhere without being targeted by other community members for no reason. I'd like to thank Racial Justice Coalition, though the leadership team has provided resource on voting, how to watch town hall meetings, and even submit comments so that I can be heard. Whenever I have questions about racial equality or anything I am uncomfortable asking, I know I can ask them and be given educational resources to make my own decisions. This is from Emiliano Vera. Good afternoon, Macomb City Council, Mayor Inman, and citizens of Macomb. I am writing to describe a situation I saw on Friday while I was attending the African Student Association's #EndSARS vigil, highlighting the recent violent suppression of protesters by police in Nigeria. Several Nigerian Americans and Nigerian exchange students spoke of the fear they had for their friends and family back in Nigeria and educated the crowd, which included American students and Macomb residents, about the situation. I felt solidarity with them even as an American because of the common fight against police violence, having witnessed the recent forceful suppression of protests across the country by police and white nationalist violence, as well as the daily intimidation and threat of violence lived by poor and Black people in this country. I was therefore horrified when these students, guests in our town, were subject to intimidation by men in trucks revving their engines and blowing smoke. This event was held far from the road in the gazebo in the park and was not directly related to the Black Lives Matter protests that are consistently harassed by motorists. I suspect that the sight of a medium-sized group of Black people was enough to make some people go out of their way to reinforce that Black people shouldn't be welcome here. The City Council needs to be updated about all public instances of racial harassment because, if nothing else, you need to know the constant fear that Black people specifically are forced to endure in this community and realize that if there is a disconnect between town and gown, it is because many students of color do not feel safe to stray too far from the campus. This is not how Macomb should treat its people, and this is certainly not how Macomb should treat international guests who are contributing significantly through their tuition dollars to our local economy. Thank you. Angel Smith. Macomb Police Department Detective J.P. McLaughlin conducted himself in a very inappropriate manner with his comments on Facebook business page about protesters. He was wrong about the facts and was deliberately provocative in posting veiled threats of violence and encouraging others to do the same. This sort of conduct promotes public mistrust of law enforcement as only interested in protecting the right kinds of people and who are the right people. Angel Smith. John Houston. Want to thank the DWMC and the RJC for the hard and relentless work of fighting for the POC of Macomb. While most don't believe there is a problem, they are blinded to what our Blacks, Latinx go through and how they feel. That in itself speaks volumes. As a victim of hate crimes and a witness to the systemic racism in our own community, I will not be told by the white community that it's non-existing or we are the problem. There is no question that hate in our community exists. Our goal is to bring awareness and accountability to those who perpetrate and deny the problem. Our community leaders and voters in town want to deny the facts. We as community need to unite and address the issues. Are we to the level of George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or Young Man Rice? No. So let's make changes before we are. Let's handle these issues before a life is lost, before another person has to die. Let's be proactive instead of retroactive dealing with the racism in our community. Social Justice Coalition. Dear Macomb City Council, it is unacceptable for white city council members to misuse their power and authority to attempt to silence our expressions of our very real and yet unaddressed concerns about the chief, the police department, the complaints, and the racism here in our community. We demand the city hold Mayor Inman and Chief Barker accountable for the harassment of the African Student Association at their event, and the city must issue a public condemnation of any and all hateful, dehumanizing, and racist behavior that continues to perpetuate in our city. White council members specifically, have you used your time to express concern for our hurting Black community or express support for Tammy Lee Brown Edwards? You have heard many concerns brought to you by our org and others with no real action taken. Instead, you used your time to tone police our righteous anger and frustration at your repeated refusals to deal with the problem of systemic and interpersonal acts of racism, intolerance, and bigotry in this community. Tone policing is a tactic used by those who have privilege to silence the one who does not, by focusing on the tone of what is being said rather than the actual content. It is used to silence, derail, or disengage from a conversation by controlling the people participating and the conditions under which the conversation is happening. So why should you stop tone policing? Because it suppresses the voices of the marginalized. It makes them feel that their anger caused by the injustice and oppression is invalid. It preserves privilege of the people who want to avoid conversations that make them feel uncomfortable. Tone policing prevents you from acknowledging your mistake, educating yourself, and uplifting others. Put a discussion on the agenda or create a town hall to talk about racism in this community before things worsen, as we've already seen in a large uptick in aggressive behavior and verbal harassment of protesters. You already have failed to show allyship in real time during council meetings after demanding to hear directly from Black people. Yet when Black people speak, you fail to respond with action or expression of concern. Alethea Aris, to whom it may concern. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. I'm deeply troubled by the handling of the public comment I submitted to be read 1 week ago. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. Disregarding the lackadaisical and feignant manner in which Ms. Falk read my comment, which in itself speaks volumes to the optical apathy demonstrated therein, it had been my understanding that public comments were to be read uninterrupted, unedited, and unfettered until such a time as their completion or the 3-minute time limit had been reached. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. Not only was my comment inappropriately shortened by Ms. Falk, even considering the caveat she made that this phrase is repeated verbatim 58 times, she deliberately neglected to read the following sentence. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. The last sentence was as follows. Please read the entirety of this message until such time as the message has been completed, read, or the 3-minute time limit has been reached, whichever comes first. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. Her deliberate refusal to read this last sentence further demonstrates the greater issue of aggressive silencing tactics used against voices of color and their associated advocates and allies in the community, particularly those that do not advantageously align with the evident morals, values, and priorities of the 87.5% of the City Council. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. Whereas my last submission for public comment was perfidiously censored by way of unsolicited discretion by Ms. Falk, I would respectfully ask that this message be read in its entirety from subject line to signature line to the objective of not being silenced by a demonstrably ambivalent group of elected officials, excluding Ms. Brown Edwards. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. White silence is violence, Black Lives Matter. That's all.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the council in the public comment section of tonight's agenda? Ms. McMeekin.
Heather McMeekin, Macomb. On Wednesday, I received a call from the African Student Association asking for help with an event that they were going to hold on campus, but they were moving it to Chandler Park. And I reached out to our leadership team and we decided to help them. They asked for help with logistics and understanding how to hold an event in our park safely. We decided to do an honor support detail for them. And I called the city clerk the next day and let them know that there would be an event there. And I also reached out to Officer Hamer and let him know. And I told them both that we were very concerned because we're seeing a real uptick in targeted racial violence. But it's not just this community. Every community all around here is reporting the same thing. We're having reports in Adams County, Fulton, Schuyler, Hancock, Mason County. And so I was really concerned because I thought, and you should all know that online, they are gaslighting groups of people who already show a propensity for, gleefully laughing about driving over people, or people who already show racism and a propensity for liking to harass people. And they are targeting them, trying to pull them further and further into a dehumanization space. And what they do is they look at the posts that people make, and we kind of do that too, where we reach out when people have been harmed and we say, are you okay? There's therapy over here, there's, but what they do is they say, hey, why don't you join us in this group? You think a lot like us. And then they start messaging further and further with dehumanization and pulling them sort of into that tribalism, and they keep reinforcing the hate. And they're hoping to provoke, at all levels, hoping to provoke outbreaks, random outbreaks of lone wolf violence. And that potential does exist, we think, here in this community. And we hope to inoculate, and that's what we're trying to do. So And I met with the students over my lunch hour, and I let them know what we had faced and what our concerns were, but I also let them know that in the park, we were fairly confident that even if the vehicles were a problem, they'd still be able to speak and hold their event. We would be there for them, and then if anyone did show up in the park, us white allies that have been trained in de-escalation would act to keep our students safe. And so they were able to hold their event. They did end up with a lot of targeting. They were going to stand with us on the sidewalk afterwards, but after what we were seeing, we were like, better if you all, head back to campus. And we pulled just a few of our team members because we wanted to at least document, be able to say what we saw. And I spoke to Deputy Burnham about that today, and I want to make clear, yes, the police have told us we're on our own there. They've made it clear that that is an assumed risk, that it is that us standing there, they consider us to also be, Deputy Burnham said that we also are making people unsafe. And I disagree wholeheartedly. We are not making
Ms.
it
McMeekin,
unsafe.
that's 3 minutes.
Yes, I know it is, but on this case, I just want to relate that it is really important that this community, our black community, be aware. We believe we are seeing an uptick in violence. Our black members are saying they are very afraid after election night that there's going to be hunting from these vehicles. That is how a lot of our black
Ms.
families are
McMeekin,
preparing
that's
for this.
3+
We hope
minutes.
that you will take action for your own safety, and that we will do our best to keep drawing attention to these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the council under the public comment section of tonight's agenda? Yes, sir.
Well, first, I want to once again co-sign Heather's sentiments. We do need a conversation on this, and it needs to be an official one. Which also begs the question, because I missed last week's meeting, but I did read over some of the one of the handouts, I guess, and it was about all the things that Mayor Inman has done. And one of them was talking about, one of the bullets was how many official events you went to pertaining to building up the community. I think it was I wish I could remember. But yeah, there's 71 unofficial things and 15 official ones. And I was really just kind of wondering, well, has there been any, I would say, any trackable change? For example, I would ask, do people feel safer? And from what Heather is telling me, no, people aren't feeling safer. So you really have to ask yourself those questions. What type of change is being made by what I'm doing? So is it working? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, then you really have to go back to the drawing board. Right now, the answer is no. So you need to go back to the drawing board. You also need to listen to more of the voices, more of the black voices. We understand our situation better than everybody. So I really have to reiterate that you should listen to your black constituents when we tell you we're not safe. I'm going to share with you all an example, essentially an example of why you should defer and just really ask more questions. The Abe Lincoln, essentially monument, I guess, the head that you put out there, essentially, well, it's racist. Abe Lincoln didn't care about black people. He only did the thing with black people. He only freed the slaves so that he could win the war. And he would have, if he could have won the war without freeing the slaves, then he would not have done it. Essentially, we were a tool for him, for a means to an end. So when you co-sign on that, or you allow that, or you ignore it, or when you say, I'm so glad we got this out here, or it looks nice, it's that ranges from microaggression to just ignoring flat out racism. If you look at his, even the one piece of the conversation with Stephen Douglas that I read, and there's several more like that, he just does not care. He doesn't care about me. He never did. And for everybody who's oh, what a great president, Your understanding of a great president is a racist. So you really need to listen to more black voices, because some of you thought that that was a good idea, and it's not a good idea. Other than that, I do like public comments. I think public comments are important. And so I'm wondering why public comments aren't open on YouTube.
Time is up.
Seems like we could reach a lot more
Marcel,
people.
the clerk's advising the time is up.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the council under the public comment section of tonight's agenda? Dr. Rutledge.
I'm here for one purpose and one purpose. And that purpose is in regard to what is happening to black people in this community. And my main concern at this point is the fact that we have had quite a bit what could turn into a real problem and loss of lives, and that is the vehicular kind of activities have been going on with those who have been attending rallies, and I have attended some, not all, but this is something that happened outside of that too. There are people who live in this community who have felt threatened by the fact that trucks, men in trucks, have tended to drive up very close to them, which gives them the feeling that they will hit you. And I had an experience like that. And it wasn't out here near the square. This was out at Walmart. I was coming out of the door and crossing the walk, and there was no car behind me. And all of a sudden, I heard this motor running. And I'm wondering, what is this? And I looked behind me, and there was a person in a truck, in a car. This was a car, and was very close behind me. And I looked back, and the person said, "Well, I'm not going to hit you." Well, if he didn't have that in mind, maybe he wouldn't have said it that way. But I don't know how there could be anybody who encounter a car or a truck coming so close behind them that they feel that their lives are threatened. And I hope you do know that this kind of behavior is not new. There are such accidents or intentional behavior that is done by people all over this country. So it's not a false fear that you have. It's a real fear. And so I want to ask that this council, this city, do something to inform black people that they could be at risk so that they will be aware.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rutledge. You're out on time. We can do that. Thank you very much. Don't forget your purse, ma'am. Does anyone else wish to speak to the council under the public comment section of tonight's agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 1, discussion on an ordinance to create a Class A liquor license for Neiman Foods Incorporated, doing business as Apollo Coin Laundry number 687. This ordinance had first reading last Monday night, and if the city attorney would like to come up and give us an overview of where we're at on the license application process, that'd be great.
Thank you. In your packets should be a summary of the application as well as an evaluation of the factors necessary for issuance of the license. If there are specific questions regarding the site plan or anything else, I do believe the representative is present to answer those questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Scalf or for the applicant? Mr. Ryan is here. Alderman Carper.
I think these are probably for Ms. Scalf because they deal with the legal requirements for it. I think all of us today got an email from a Mr. Smith that was bringing up a couple of legal issues that and concerns that he had, and I've tried to summarize them because the email is kind of long. One of the things he was concerned about was a revenue component of splitting of the business meeting a percentage of sales for the liquor versus the other thing. And I wanted to clarify with you that we don't have that particular percentage in the Class A license. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So that doesn't apply when it's a Class A.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing he brought up that I thought was a legal issue also was that he said that the liquor license had to be tied to a specific business. And I think what he was asking or implying was that since Neiman's was mainly in the grocery business, that he believed that the liquor license had to be tied somehow to the grocery business. I read the statute as saying it could be tied to any business that the applicant has. Would that be?
Yes, I would agree.
Okay. The other, actually, there's two more. One talked about the ownership. There is no requirement that an owner actually live within the city of Macomb. Is that correct?
We require a resident manager,
Okay.
which is included in the application, and we do a background check of that resident manager, which we have done in this situation as well.
Okay. So the owner of the liquor license, in this case Neiman's, doesn't have to live in Macomb,
No,
as long as they have the resident manager.
that is correct.
Okay. And the final one is kind of a mixed question of law and site approval. He was concerned that there wasn't enough parking, and I think he may have been concerned with, I couldn't tell if he was concerned with off-street or on-street, and if I'm correct, that location has quite a bit of off-street parking that is owned by that particular set of businesses. Is that right?
That is correct.
So this application meets the requirement for parking also?
Yes.
Okay. Those were the issues he brought
Let
up.
me
and
qualify that. I'm not aware of any parking issues. Mr. Bannon would be better able to answer that question.
Okay,
but
that's
I'm
what
not
I
aware
wasn't
of any
sure of.
issues since it's an ongoing business.
Okay. I just thought that his concerns were worth bringing up in public, so we could address those things that he was concerned about. And I just got the email today, so I don't know if those were comments he had made somewhere else.
That was the first I had heard of those comments as well.
Okay. Thanks for answering those. I appreciate that.
Alderman Carper, just a couple of points. I too received the email.
Oh, okay.
So, and speaking with Community Development Coordinator, need one parking space for every 150 square feet of space is going to be open to the public. And in this particular instance, I believe the applicant says that 300 square feet is committed to the gaming/alcohol area. So they would need 2 parking spots for that. John, do you want to address the parking issue a little more further? We had some discussion earlier today
And
as
I
well.
think there's many more than 2 in that particular.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
probably close to 30 spaces.
Yeah, I'm concerned because that's my ward and that's where I like to go. So
Understand.
I know the area.
There are about 29 spaces in total. Like Mayor Inman said, it's 150 square per 150 square feet of public space in the gaming and alcohol service area. You know, for 300 square feet, they'll need 2 spots. It's 300 square feet for the public space and the laundry, so they have more than enough. I think that'd be 8 or 9 spots, and there are plenty of leftover spots for whatever future development happens in the rest of the building. Again, there are like 29, I think I counted 29 spots
Okay.
in the total area. So there's adequate parking. We went through the parking table, and I don't have any concerns about adequate parking. It's all paved, it's all in good shape.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that his concerns got dealt with
Absolutely.
during our discussion here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other council members? Alderman Brown Edwards.
I have two questions, and I'm not sure who can answer this. When it says resident manager, does that mean for that property or any property that Neiman's owns, the manager could come across town and claim their manager of that property? And then my second question is, it says that there are, I imagine, I don't have it now, there are not plans right now to have, I guess, harder alcohol, but there possibly could be?
Let me start with number one. The resident manager was listed on the application for this particular location for this particular license, so that's
Okay.
what they would be tied to.
This address?
Correct.
Okay.
Question number two, there is no restriction on the Class A as to what they can sell. They have indicated they're only going to sell beer, but there would be no restriction. They could expand that.
Thank you.
Alderman Cook.
I haven't been here for 2 weeks, but a question that came to mind is that since this is laundry, there could be some mothers in there with children. And how are we going to deal since children shouldn't be in a car?
In your packet should be a site plan, and I may ask the representative to come up and kind of walk you through that, because there's all straight lines, so it's kind of hard to see where there might be doors and barriers to prevent that commingling, so to speak. So I think I would ask him to come up and explain that for you, and that would probably answer your question better.
Okay, I didn't get this site plan, so.
Good evening, all. Dave Riney with Neiman Foods. There is actually a door, currently, it's a see-through glass door that goes into the back room, an area that is not accessible by customers currently. We would be redeveloping that back room to put in the gaming. That is where gaming and the alcohol would be served. We would actually frost over or gloss over that door in some way, and it's actually around a hallway. It would not be visible in any way, shape, or form from in the laundry area.
Thank you.
And then to speak to your point on the other alcohols, I have no desire, nor will I ever have a desire to serve hard alcohol by the drink. I will sell it in my convenience store as bottle. I don't want a shot, I don't want a mixer, I don't want to sell that in any way, shape, or form. That's
Okay.
just not a, that's
It
just
was
not a-
vague in that description. Thank you.
just not it's not a business I want to be in, not there's anything wrong with it, just nothing I want to manage.
Okay. And the way I'm glad you're speaking to the setup. So the way it's currently set up, there would be is there a separate entrance for the beer setup area right here? And is that still all glass, or will that also be frosted as well, facing the street, facing south?
There is nothing facing
north?
the street from where this would be. Currently, there is a, we'll call it a clerk area, where the current clerk of the laundromat sits. It's not visible from the outside in any way except a partition that opens up into the laundry area.
Okay.
In the back side of that area, there is an opening into where into the back room currently, into where the gaming will be. So they will have access themselves to both the laundry and the gaming. However, no one from the laundry will be able to see into that back area. So that's where the beer will be. It is not visible in any way.
Okay, so this diagram I'm having, that the beer setup is in the front of the building, correct?
In
But
the
you
front of the
cannot
building,
see
in
it.
the clerk area.
But you cannot see it
Correct.
from the front of the business.
Correct.
Thank you.
So it's my understanding, Mr. Brundy, that there is no one under the age of 21 allowed in the facility by state law because it's a gaming area.
In the gaming area, correct.
So if, for example, excuse me, an adult brought a minor child with them to do their laundry, the minor child would not be able to go back there with the adult.
Correct.
Okay.
As we do currently at
Wash and Win.
Wash and Win.
Okay.
I will say, we also, If a minor child is brought along with someone who wants to go into the gaming area, generally then that clerk speaks to that person about perhaps do not leave your minor child unattended out here.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for Ms. Riney? Alderman Brown Edwards.
Is there signage stating not to leave underage minors unattended?
No.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Moon.
I don't know if it's in our packet or not. I didn't see it. And this might be a question for you or the city administrator. Have we had any complaints on the wash and wind?
None. Not in regard to the operation
So
of the business.
I'm going to assume that this mouse doesn't work very well, but usually you can tell how someone will operate their future endeavors by how they've done in the past, and I think they've been good stewards of what we've allowed them to do, and I would encourage us to go ahead and move forward with this one.
Very good, thank you. A couple of things that I know that you had some staff contact with today, Mr. Riney. We want to make sure that we're abiding by all fire codes, given the proximity of where you're going to be having the gaming and ingress and egress. So I understand that's been conveyed to you. And I think there's an outstanding issue regarding wash and wind that's going to be taken care of relatively soon regarding a screening of the south side of that business.
If there were any to be purchased locally, we would have already purchased it. We have ordered through a contractor the fencing. We do not have an ETA as of right now. Hopefully I will have that soon for you. It is ordered. We've contracted a trout fencing out of Dallas City to come in and install that.
Okay.
And hopefully that's done as soon as possible. We'd like to get that behind us as well.
Well, if you could give us an ETA on that, and then we'll await some discussion regarding the final plans that you have for the build-out of the gaming area for fire code approval, and we should be in good shape, I think, once we get that information. Anything else for us, sir?
No.
Okay, anyone else? Alrighty, thank you. Our intention would be to place that on for discussion at the first meeting in November, with the understanding that we'll have some additional information regarding compliance with fire code. Item number 2, discussion on ordinance annexing certain territory located in part of the southwest quarter of Section 5, Township 5 North, Range 2 West of the 4th Principal Meridian, McDonough County, Illinois, known as the Julie Davis Trust. This ordinance had first reading last week. It's an area on Grant Street extended just east of Candy Lane. And do you have the size of the tract? How many acres? 7?
Scott.
Pretty close. And it does have an improvement on the property that we're annexing. Is 6.83, and there's an improvement on the property we'd be annexing, correct? All right. Any questions for staff regarding the proposed annexation ordinance? Alderman.
Anything changed from last week?
No.
Okay, good.
All righty, we'll have that on for action then next Monday night. Item number 3, update from the Community Development Corner, Mr. John Bannon on economic development grants. John.
Thank you, Mayor. Two updates. One, we just want to update council that the downstate small business stabilization grants that Magnolia's, Michael's Hair Designers, and Nostalgia sent in were sent back to us for some updates on the GATA budgets. So those, we've communicated with the business owners, we've updated the GATA working capital sections, and those are back with DCEO. So hopefully those business owners will get their money promptly. But we just wanted to update council that from the city side, we've got them back with the state of Illinois, and we're waiting for their concurrence. Also, with WIRC, the Office of Community Development put together a grant proposal under the Local Cures Economic Support Payments Grant Program. We submitted an application for $200,000 for outdoor dining support. It would be from $2,500 to $10,000. And the reason we submitted it immediately is the receipts have to be before December 31st of 2020. They can be retroactive, so they're from March 1st to December 21st of 2020. And the intention here is to get some support from the state of Illinois for local businesses that have already expended some money on outdoor dining for COVID-related expenses, as well as provide support for businesses that are thinking of doing so moving forward. And I can think of at least 4 or 5 businesses off the top of my head that have expended a significant amount of money on outdoor dining. And so as long as they still have the receipts or invoices, we'd be able to reimburse those businesses for their expenses, as well as offer that to additional businesses. And other cities have used this for CARES funding. And so we just wanted to make sure we got that in promptly to the state, because we have to create the guidelines and run the program and get it finished by the end of the year. So there was a time constraint, but we just wanted to update council and answer any questions. There was money out there, $1.798 million for West Central Illinois, and so we wanted to make sure that Macomb got a share of that. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions at all for John? Still some programs available. Alderman Carper?
I just want to compliment you for going after that grant and finding that and trying to help our local business owners.
Like I said, I mean, I know Los Charros, Los Tapatillos, Magnolias, Forgatonia, and I'm probably wine cellars. I'm probably missing a few more. I know they've expended significant sums of money already on outdoor dining, and so we'll be able to reimburse that as long as the receipts are from March 1st or later. So, and then as well as any businesses that want to do so moving forward. So that's the goal.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Item number 4, discussion on a resolution extending the Murrell Emergency Proclamation declaring a civil emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic that was originally issued on April 16th, 2020. There's a copy of the proposed extension in your packet. Ms. Scalf, do you want to go over that for us, please?
Sure. The resolution is very similar to the prior resolutions. I added the additional date of the most recent disaster declarations from the governor. I think I updated some of the numbers on confirmed cases and deaths. Most of the rest of it is pretty comparable. Added the prior extension in the whereas clause. And the resolution, as it currently stands, provides for an extension to January 4th, which is 63 days from next Monday when the resolution would be effective. If council wanted to go out further, January 18th would be 77 days, and February 1st would be 91 days. So give you options.
Thank you. Any discussion? Good with the 63 days to January 4th? Likely still be dealing with issues regarding COVID. The county extended their order, I believe, Wednesday. Is that correct?
I think that's what you told me this
Right.
morning, so I do
Okay.
believe that's correct.
Alrighty, we'll have that on for action on extending that till January 4th unless there's any other discussion. Alrighty, thank you. Don't believe there's any other business. I would like to remind everyone that a week from tomorrow is Election Day and that early voting continues at the McDonough County Courthouse 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, and that they'll also be open this Saturday, October 31st, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'd like to remind everyone of their First Amendment rights and encourage civil and nonviolent discourse when it comes to discussing issues of politics, particularly in the era that we're in. Be respectful and civil and refrain from hateful and racist, violent discourse. So, in quoting President Abraham's comments today at thought it was timely that he spoke on this. We support person's right to voice their opinion, and we encourage respectful discussions when we disagree, but we must do so in a manner that protects the integrity of our differences. So I thank him for those comments today, and we would echo those significantly. A couple of things I'd like to update you on real quick as a matter of information. Received information from McDonough County Health Department late this afternoon. Since last Thursday, there are additional 53 cases of positive confirmed cases of COVID-19 in McDonough County. The breakdown is 28 females, 25 males, and they range 10 in their teens, 17 in their 20s, 5 in their 30s, 5 in their 40s, 4 in their 50s, 7 in their 60s, 2 in their 70s, 3 in their 80s, 25 newly recovered cases, and they've reported an additional 3 deaths due to COVID-19 in McDonough County since last Thursday. Our sympathies goes to those families who have experienced loss. So a total of 155 active cases in McDonough County as we speak this evening. So we would continue to encourage the use of facial coverings, and we would also continue to remind and admonish people regarding social distancing and gathering in spaces that are not conducive to everyone's health. I'd like to call Alderman Moon.
I just had a question about
Yes, sir.
the numbers they come up with, and maybe you could find out for us. I happen to be aware of a couple people that had no symptoms, but they had to test because they were going to have surgical procedures. Their test came back positive. They didn't believe it, so they went to another testing site in Macomb and tested negative. Now, does any of that get voided off the record? Because, okay, this person tested twice, one negative, one positive, so that's going to throw your percentages off. So are they purging any of this, or is there any method to purge it, or is there any attempt to purge it?
I could ask and we'll get you an answer.
I would appreciate it.
Okay.
You got their ear more than I do.
All righty.
You know who to ask, I don't.
Well, I can try.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
all we ask.
Be happy to share the information. I would like to call an executive session to consider information relative to the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of an employee of the public body or legal counsel for the public body pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act, and collective bargaining matters between the public body and its employees or representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employee pursuant to Section 2C2 of the Open Meetings Act.
Make a motion, go to executive session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Wayland.
Aye.
Vajezzi.
Aye.
Carper.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Carper.
Aye.
Brown Edwards.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
All ayes.
Thank you. Motion carried. We will go into executive session.
Thank you.
What's that? Oh.